Hello, Power Up Gamers. I'm here to have a conversation about how we build our characters when we first start and step a little bit beyond the numbers. I love stories, so I'm going to tell a story about Leisha. Leisha Hearthstone. We were playing in a game of Dragonlance, and she was a Solamnic Knight, which in that world is kind of their paladins. And I believe we were playing 2nd edition. The best roll I had for a stat was a 12. DM even felt bad for me and knew some rules that somebody had come up with about bonuses for age. Like when you're younger, you get a strength and a mod to your con, and then your wisdom and intelligence are lower, but then they go up as you get older. And I was kind of down. Everybody wants to be the hero. Everybody wants to be the big, tough badass. That's just what a lot of us like. Now, we also learn about story and get a little bit better at being a part of the story. And I'll tell you, I played this character, and it's first fight we got into, I critical fumbled and killed the Elven Ranger that we had in our group. And it's funny, at the time, I had read a lot of stuff about how to build characters and make them more than, give them a little more depth than just a couple little things about their personality. But I would also argue, too, that you can also build the personality as you play, too. Having a character, I think that's part of why a lot of times the idea is you start with a younger character. Now, that's not a guaranteed thing, but a lot of people do. But it also gives room for growth. I can think of a character I had that I was DMing for, and it was a ranger. And I made him roll for random encounter. Now, understand in my games, I always make 1 in 20 always effect. I don't care. It's not just fighting or attacking with my game. It's everything. Well, he rolled a run for his critical, or for his encounter roll. So while he was asleep, this fire shadow creature come up out of the campfire they had and attacked him. And before it was over with, he was down to 1 hit point before that party could get rid of that thing. And then after that, his character wouldn't get near campfires. So I would argue when you first start playing, especially when you talk about 5e, they've got those ideals and bonds and flaws in your character. And, you take them and you build them into what you can. Those of us that have more experience can go in and build a little more depth to that character at first. When you're new, it's something you kind of got to learn. You're going to practice. Some people have a natural talent for it than others. On the other hand, I've seen a couple what I call over-convoluted background stories. My mom was a demon. My dad was an angel. I was abused. It's almost a novel in and of itself. I feel like that, like I do with like a lot of world building. If you're not careful, it's an exercise. It's not necessarily helpful. It's one of the things I saw people talking about too is characters always having tragic backstories. So I'm trying to play characters that don't have tragic backstories. And we all, in real life and we all have some tragedy in our life. It's just not necessarily as horrible as what a lot of times gets played out in the stories and the characters. I think that you come into a game and you set up the character and you go through and do your ideals and your bonds. One of the things I always thought was really interesting is Shadowrun 3rd Edition had a thing called 20 Questions. And what it was about was like, and this is a little harder to translate into the fantasy world sometimes, especially when you're not necessarily that knowledgeable with the world. But what's your favorite music? Do you have parents? Are they still alive? Do you have siblings? Are they still alive? What kind of relationship do you have with them? What's your favorite sports team? Okay, and I kind of added this in. You go back to Palladium, and their alignment system was kind of based on moral set too, just like D&D, but it was a little more like would take blood money, which blood money would be like criminal money, money that they used, killed somebody, got that way. I thought that was really interesting, and I kind of tried to add that to my games. What would you do? Will you kill an innocent? Will you only not kill a child? That also adds a depth to, like, especially when you start talking about what I consider some of the problem with playing evil a lot of times. A lot of people play evil as, I would almost say what D&D would consider chaotic evil. It's just stupid evil. It's to be destructive to be destructive. And the reality is that what is evil and makes a good character, there's depth to. I would say, and one of my favorites is like Magneto in X-Men. Some of the times when he talks about his point of views and his things, it's you kind of are sometimes like, I kind of see where he's coming from. It's that kind of character depth that pulls people in. When you want to make a character that's fun to play, especially get into the storytelling and the role playing, you want to be more than one dimensional. You want to have likes and dislikes. Even the tough guy has a fear of spiders, things like that. It adds a dimension of humanism to the game. It makes it more real, more believable. Now, especially when you're talking about campaigns, you can take your time and put that stuff out there. But I can think of a friend. It's when I make characters, especially now that I'm really starting to learn how to kind of refine that. A lot of times I build them off of other characters or people I know, or maybe an amalgamation of those people. Example being, I was running a game the other night with Jaron off this channel and Corey, and one of the characters was the bartender for the bar that they were in, and they were called her Mama. Now, I kind of went in my head as we were playing and based her off of a combination of some of what I call the good qualities of my mother and some of my grandmothers, some of the older women in my family that I know. And so that gives me a baseline for the reactions of how that character is going to be. I crafted another character that I didn't realize was going to be what they were, but the players picked up on her, and her name was Stella. And I crafted her off one of my cousins and some of the girls that worked with me that I mentored over the years. And you get those ideas in your head, and it gives you a better understanding of the reactions of that character. How they would behave. And as you give those behaviors, it makes them more believable. I won't lie. I feel like I need to focus more sometimes on my being a player as I am a DM with that stuff. But I'll tell you, some of the characters that really stuck with me are the ones that have the flaws. There's something wrong with them, but they're also heroic. That tragic heroic thing, it helps. It makes a character likable. But also, think about a paladin. A paladin used to have a real bad rep for being this goody two-shoes. You still hear it talked about in some forums of people talking online and stuff that, the goody two-shoes paladin. Well, imagine you make a paladin and you get ideas of, wants to bring good to the world and they vanquish evil. And, but you give him a flaw like worried about what others think or his image. And so you get a character that wants to be good, but is also pulled back sometimes. He has missteps. with that kind of character, I could see a struggle between, putting them in a situation where is your image more important than what's really good? And, and to be honest, a good storytelling is he doesn't always do that. Sometimes he does fall back. You look at real life, that's how it is. In art, and believe it or not, D&D is an art. It can be very strong role playing, and it gets things out there. And when you create that character with more depth, you connect with other people more. They're the high and mighty guy that never does anything wrong. People just feel like something's wrong there. It doesn't make sense. And it's because that's how life is. You go back and look at characters in the real world, people, and, I'll give you a good example. I've heard a lot of people, talk differently about Martin Luther King. The man had a vision. He wanted to change things. And he wanted to do it in a peaceful way. And that's really admirable. But, and I almost hate to admit this, but my dad had a problem because, he cheated on his wife. And a lot of that old school mentality was, that made you not a good person. But the reality is that's his flaw. That's his human part of him, that he's not perfect. None of us are. And as you create that depth in a character, it makes them more human and more vulnerable, but also more likable and a better hero. And, they fail, but they keep trying. Or, they fail and you have to create a character depth. Talking about the game I run the other day, one of them was playing a barbarian, and I would say very aggressive attitude, very aggressive personality. And how I see that is, from a DM perspective, is that's a character that needs to learn to tone it down. That they need to gain a little more wisdom than just being right in the face of everything at all times. But that's the potential for growth. That's, you go back and look at all the big heroes and stories, like Harry Potter, talk about the phenomenon of that story, and you talk about how each character grows. Each one they go through things, they learn things, and they become more mature and more capable to handle the issues they're going to deal with. You will see sometimes stories of full-grown characters that don't mature, but I don't think the depth is there. One of my favorite writers is R.A. Salvatore, and one of the things he does in his Drizzt books is he kind of does the journaling of Drizzt, and Drizzt kind of always questioning his beliefs. You could go back and just call it alignment from a D&D perspective, but in the stories, it's, is what I believe right? Is this good? Is this good? Is this not good? That questioning, even though you have this character that is absolutely one of the biggest badasses in the world. I mean, that's how he's portrayed at all times in that book to some degree. There's a part of him that's still growing, wanting to be better. Now, does that mean he always makes the right decision? No. But it's that striving. It's that you have flaws, but you're trying to be more than that. So when you pick a character and you get your ideas and your bonds and your flaws, think about that flaw. Think about things that would happen where you would screw up. Now, I will say this, you got to have a DM that's about that kind of play. You got one that's going to kill you for any slip up. That's not going to be the kind of gameplay you're getting. But you find DMs that tell stories, and they're more concerned about how good the story is than about how a rule plays out. And I would argue that you really want to get in those kind of games Yeah, you want to know how to build a character mechanically. You want to have that numbers down. But, the reality is there's plenty of videos out there you can watch about that. I'd rather talk about character development, how to really invest yourself in the character and get others to invest in it too. I see a lot of people do the brooding character that don't talk and is static and, I'm a big badass. And this is my mode of role playing. But, I understand that. That's a deeply rooted idea of what the tough hero is. But I would also you go look at movies and books that you've read and think about the heroes in those. And I know a lot of people don't like using the hero or the same character, but if you're starting off, I would say doesn't hurt. Try pick a character you like and try to play that character. And then as you get down the road and get more experience, pick up personality traits from other ones you get, like the static character. What if he has a soft spot for dogs? And so this character that's always this way, and when he sees a dog, he's a good boy, he's a good boy. He's a good boy, a good dog. That gives that character more than just that one-dimensional depth. And if played right, can really make an impact on the people around you because you have this guy that doesn't talk and isn't part of the thing, and then all of a sudden this thing happens and they use that character now. It's you see another facet of that personality. Creating those personalities, I would say, as an art form, it takes time and you got to practice at it, which that comes along with playing the game. I said it in my last video, and I'm always going to say it. Don't be too hard on yourself. Yes, you want to go, okay, I made a mistake here, or this is where I could have done this better. But don't beat yourself up. I'll tell you right now, talk to some of the biggest names in D&D, and you're going to hear that they still make mistakes, or they still have regrets, or they still feel like, I could have done that a little better. That's natural, and that's part of the process. I would really advise, when you make a character like that, we put so much time, and I won't lie, there is a part of me that's a little bit of the min-maxer. I want to be as badass I can be. But, you take time to build that concept for your character and get more depth into the character. And you'll create a much more powerful experience for yourself and for those around you. You think about the things that this character likes, things they don't like, and then it's like, one of the building experiences I try to do with some of my players is those questions. What are your favorite things? Why are they that way? I was talking to one of my other players in another game I have about her character, and this is only second level character, and we just really started getting playing. And I realized that she's not been as involved with the game, and I've tried to figure out ways to get her more involved. So I started talking to her about her character, and well, what's your character's favorite food? Okay, well, can you give me a memory of why that's your character's favorite food? And so she was like, well, Grandma made it for me. And I have a strong memory of that as kids, that that was my favorite dish. Well, see, that story, it creates a connection for you. It gives a feel to the character, and I warn you this, sometimes you got to be careful about how you portray your character. You don't necessarily want to just spit out everything about them. But you have those memories, kind of like you do in your own life, and somebody starts talking in the game, and you go, oh, that pops up. Yeah, I remember my Nana. She made really good onions and parsnip. That dish was so great. I remember fighting my sister over it to get it. Those things can add a depth to that storytelling that just brings that more emotional connection. That gives you that feel for what you want that storytelling. You want that character to be likable, but not always likable. But it's that strange combination of life that we are much more complicated than a couple little monikers that a lot of people want to put on things. And you really want to get to the point where you're doing really, really great storytelling that's one of the things I would focus more on. And a lot of us out there don't realize it, but we've watched movies and TV shows and read books and comics. And so you actually have a lot of stuff of that creative stuff in your head. You just got to learn to start kind of cherry picking it and making it things work for you. You know, when I hear a lot of people talk about, well, that's just so-and-so character redone, or this story's be redone, it's just told a different way. Well, I don't remember where I heard it. I want to say maybe Shakespeare said that there's only 12 stories in the world. It's just a matter of how you tell it. I would argue that's very true. You know, a lot of times things are rehashes. You're not really creating something completely new. It's just a matter of how you tell it that makes it better. You know, making a character likable. You know, what if you have a character that's a coward? And over the time that you play out, he learns things and becomes a hero, you know, saves the person at the last moment that nobody else is there to do. It makes that character just so much more real. You know, if you watch Game of Thrones, I think Jaime Lannister is a really good example of that. Now, I feel like they kind of didn't do so good a job of the show itself in the book. You know, he really takes that character from being what you think of as the evil character to making him a little more human and making him grow and change his perspectives. You know, I'd say especially in the books, Jaime Lannister is really supposed to be that bad guy that is redeemed to a good guy. And I think they kind of screw that up a little bit in the story in the TV show. But, you know, you watch shows like that and you think about what makes that character interesting, what makes them likable, but what makes them, I don't like about you. It's that combination of different traits that creates a memorable character. Well, this is Chuck with Power Up Gamers. Have a good night.